Doesn't that feel good to just relax and get rid of everything that's been going on and just take the time in silence? Thanks, Reverend Francie. It does for me, at least. Well, hey, I'm going to talk about somebody today for a moment. Father O'Malley. He's got a parish up in Boston. How many people don't know Father O'Malley? A few people know Father O'Malley. That's good. Well, anyway, if those of you who know him and those of you who don't, I'm going to tell you he's really well respected both by his people in his congregation and by the church elders and things. But Father O'Malley's been at the same parish for a long, long time. And the reason is probably because he never really gets political. But everybody respects him because he is super honest as the day is long. And but politically, when he talks about something, he just gives that honesty and doesn't explain anything really. He just point blank to you, okay? So he's very short on words. Well, one day he's at the parish and the phone rings and he picks it up. And the man on the other line says, "Hello, is this Father O'Malley?" And he says, "It is." And the man says, "Well, I'm from the IRS. Can you help me?" He says, "I will." And then he says, "Do you have a congregant named James Hedrum?" And he said, "I do." And the IRS man said, "Well, did he give $10,000 to the church the other day?" And Father O'Malley said, "He will." Pretty honest guy. Okay, well, let's say our statements of truth together, please. I am a child of God. I am deserving of good in my life. I am accepting my good now. Well, how often do we say something in a way that is received differently than what was intended? Communication is important for us to relate to each other, and there are many forms of communication. Our words are the most popular and explanatory communication that we have, whether that be conveyed in verbal or written form. Verbally, if we explain what we mean in a lengthy dissertation, or we try with a few words just like Father O'Malley does, we sometimes still are misunderstood. And even in a language as detailed as English, words do not always express a complete understanding of the intent from the speaker. Have you ever tried to explain something to someone and you could just tell that they did not comprehend what you were saying? Or maybe, probably, at least for me, I've been on the other side too, when I'm hearing them and thinking all this that they're saying is just a bunch of gibberish. Or I go somewhere else altogether. But on the receiving end, an accountant, an engineer, or a computer program may interpret what has been said from an analytical viewpoint, since that is the part of the brain that they're used to using. While an artist, a counselor, or a forest ranger may paint a totally different picture in their mind when they hear the very same words. Through training and practice, we learn how to use specific traits we possess as humans. But we are not only humans, are we? We are also spiritual beings that can express in numerous ways. That is what is so exciting about the spiritual journey that we are on. We get to continue to learn and to express more in different ways because of our God-given talents as we open ourselves up to more and more of who and what we are. When you were created in this physical body, you were not given a left brain or a right brain. You were given both left and right brains. And how we use these parts of our body is up to us. We may be trained to use one or the other predominantly, but that does not mean that we have to forget about the other half of our brain. If we do, we may miss out on a wonderful part of life that we would have enjoyed. We all have our experiences in life, and that compilation of memories, as you know, resides in our subconsciousness. Everything that we have been through in life resides in our subconsciousness. We have stored those memories, and we have labeled them in some fashion. When you were a child, you remember about probably being taught or observing fire on the stove, and it was hot, and you don't want to touch it because it can hurt you. And through your own personal observation, you also learned that fire can be used for many useful purposes. like cooking, heating, etc. You can come up with other things. So when we see fire today, we will usually observe it for a while before we make a decision on whether this current fire is going to be useful or it is going to be something that we need to avoid because it can hurt us. Most of our memories, though, are not that way. Most of our memories have a preconceived notion of whether this or that thing is going to help us or it is something that we need to stay away from. As we grow older and have more experiences in this physical part of life, we tend to pull more and more from our subconsciousness for the answers to today's events from experiences in the past. But is this the best way to draw conclusions? Not in many circumstances. Our world today, our language, our understanding has grown to the point that not only do we have a different base to draw from today than from yesterday, the reality is different today than yesterday. This is one of the reasons that the church and our understanding of spirituality is so important today. In spirituality, our growth and understanding being a continuum and evolving is pretty much a given. Yet for some reason we have not been able to, as a humanity, correlate reality in the same way. For instance, since World War II broke out and we became a part of it, the United States government, or when it broke out, the United States government imprisoned Japanese Americans for the simple fact that their ancestry was from Japan. No matter how long they had been here in the United States, called themselves an American, and believed in the American pursuit during the war. They were encamped in specific areas and not allowed to leave. This was because the race consciousness at that time was that all Japanese were the same. That does not mean that every American was on that same level of thinking, that their consciousness was that all Japanese were the same. But the majority were afraid of Japanese Americans because Japan had bombed Pearl Harbor and essentially destroyed it. Last Wednesday at our Rotary meeting, we had a guest speaker who was with the Tuskegee Airmen. He reminded us how after World War I, an Army general had written down a letter to his superiors of how African Americans could not comprehend and that in battle zones, and that way they should not be allowed to have any position of authority in the Army. Only through the petitioning of Eleanor Roosevelt did African Americans get the opportunity to become pilots. And even then, they were segregated from the rest of the Army Air Corps. But what happened was, after training and passing required tests, the same as any other pilot, the Tuskegee Airmen were more disciplined and proved to be better fighter escorts for the bombers than any other wing in the Army Air Corps. By overcoming a false belief that was embedded in race consciousness at the time, we were able to receive a blessing that had an impact on life as we know it. Over the last few weeks, there have been, I don't know how many are sports fans, but you've probably seen it even in the news. There's been a discussion about racism in the NBA, National Basketball Association. And most recently, one of the team owners said that if he were walking down the street at night and saw a black man wearing a hoodie pulled over his head coming toward him, that he would cross to the other side of the street. In the same explanation, he stated that if he was walking down the street and saw a white man with a shaved head and tattoos all over his face, head, and body coming toward him, he would cross the street to the other side again. Now, some may say that this man is making these comments as bigoted or even racist. But how are we going to raise our own consciousness if we aren't honest about where we are today? We teach here in the church how we should love one another and how we each have the Christ within everyone, yet it does not always look that way through our eyes in everyday life, does it? In 2002 or 3 or 4, I don't remember what the year was, we had a project at school. And one of them, we had entrepreneurial project. One of them, the main project for the semester was you guys we were in groups, and you have to go make something, no limitations, and make a profit on it in this semester, period. And so my group made this. And it was Wichita State Shockers. That's why you see Shockers and then Wichita State University. We sold out of them. Of course, at the time I had a business and I bought quite a few. It wasn't that many. I only bought 5 or 6, but most people only bought 1 or 2. But anyway, it came out really good. And this was before any type of hoodie was looked at as a negative. This was something that we made, and at the time, I didn't even know hoodies were really, really popular, but they were really popular at that time. And so it was no problem selling them to anybody. But nowadays, I don't know. I don't know if it would be as popular. I don't know if it would go as easy. It was then. But we have different ways of looking at things in different times of our life, don't we? We all know that war is hell. And yet, as a humanity, we continue to fight. Heck, I'm not innocent in this deal. When I'm watching the news and I see Putin over there in Ukraine, I'm sitting there thinking, we should just drop bombs on him and forget about the thing, get him out of the picture. But I'm saying that from the comfort of my couch, aren't I? But even in that, when we get frustrated and don't know what to do next, we have to realize that our frustration has to be communicated in a way where everyone involved comes out a winner. We know that war is not the answer. But we also, at least as far as the race consciousness, haven't figured out the answer yet. But it is there. And to be able to communicate that without creating a war is something our race consciousness is still working on. With that said, each one of us in this room, and everyone in humanity, possess the perfect communication tool that will always communicate with others without fail. Yeah, just go back to the old days. Huh? We know that war does not work. We waste valuable resources that were created to bless the world in a specific way. Each physical life that is lost in war is a divine expression that was not allowed to express fully. We have to allow divinity within ourselves and others to express in this life. How many in here today have been discriminated against? Everybody can really raise their hand, I know that. Whether you think it or not, you have probably been discriminated against. Whether it be in the church you belong to, the color of your skin, your sex, or the job you have, people pull from their subconscious the things they have been taught or learned in life about your kind and make judgments without ever knowing you. I have been discriminated against in many ways, but the church is the most obvious. When many ministers come to a new town, in general, many ministers come to a new town, within a few months, other ministers will come around to introduce themselves and welcome you to the area. In Unity, we do not often get the welcome wagon. When at a party and a group of people are enjoying each other, enjoying their time together, what do you think happens when we're all talking in a circle and it comes up, what do you do for a living? And I say, I'm a minister. It's like, picture this in your mind, it's like a slow motion version of a bunch of bugs in the middle of the floor at night when the lights turned on. I don't have the plague, at least I don't think so, but it sure does look like it. Although I have not experienced it as much down south, I do appreciate that because I think there's a lot of religious people down here, so we don't do that as much. The other day, Reverend Francie and I met with a wonderful gentleman that happened to be a minister also. And part of his calling is to help the people in Haiti rebuild, as there still is much to do in that country from devastating earthquakes and corruption, all sorts of things. We met to see if there's anything that we, as a church, Unity Church and Spiritual Center, can collaborate with him on to continue giving a hand up to the Haitians. Unity has already an international department, has had for many, many, many years. And so I contacted them to find out where we were concerning Haiti before the man came up. The last time I knew we had sent someone to Haiti was around 2010. And during a visit, we as far as Unity people at headquarters, because I was there at the time, were disappointed to have to spend a large amount of our aid in bribes to the government and to the locals. So I had the international department, I contacted the lead of her before the meeting, and asked her where we were right now in Haiti. The person in charge, she told me that she had just gotten back from the Dominican Republic, and was sad when she was there for a while because she was so close that could not go back into Haiti. While talking with this man, though, this minister, he told me that he had no problems with his aid and did not have to pay any bribes. I asked him the question, I said if he thought that the race had anything to do with it. He said it is possible. So we can see that the race consciousness doesn't have anything to do with race, okay? Race consciousness, human consciousness, permeates all people in all countries around the world. It's not only here in America, it's everywhere. But more importantly, the race consciousness is a simple reflection of what a critical mass of humanity has in their individual consciousness. Yet this is easy to rise above this discriminatory traits of the human condition. We have many times already, believe it or not. We do not look at people of German and Japanese descent as being enemies anymore. When 9/11 happened, we did not round up all the Muslims in the country and hold them against their will like we did the Japanese in World War II. Is there still work to be done? Sure there is. And we are getting closer to understanding the only place that the work can be done is within our own self. We can go within and know the truth about ourselves and that same truth about others. We can look at our subconscious thoughts. We can recognize whether the conclusions that we are drawing from today come from a situation that happened yesterday. Are we pulling from an old, invalid belief? Or are we letting the circumstances of today speak for themselves? And the only way this can be done is if we each, as individuals, come closer to the truth that we all are a child of God, endowed with all good, living in a universe that is set up for our success. And in closing, I want to say the only way to communicate, where you are guaranteed to give and get the message that was intended, is to communicate from the Christ within you. That is both in speaking to someone else and in listening. When you listen to the other person and hear the truth that they are searching for. If they are lashing out, then they are upset about something within them. It is not you that they are really lashing out toward. It's something within them. When we speak the truth that you know that uplifts everyone and everything. Speak from the Christ within you. And most importantly, living the truth with a constant prayer practice while walking your spiritual journey. Know that God is blessing you in this very instant. Amen.